Hi everyone. With just 2 days to go before the referendum, I thought I'd make this video to explain why I think we should remain in the EU. First things first, I want to pay tribute to Jo Cox, who was not only an MP, a fantastic MP who served her community with all her heart, excuse me, but she was also a human being, more importantly a mother. Now, her children are going to grow up without her. I'm really sorry to hear that, and my thoughts go to her family and friends. And I know a lot of people say that, but we genuinely mean it when we do. It's truly awful. And I just saw Nigel Farage basically say, you know, the Prime Minister's linking her murder to the Brexit campaign. And I thought, really, Nigel, really, a fantastic person, a fantastic mother has just died. That's all you can think about, really, throwing an accusation. I mean, what in the world is wrong with you? Seriously? I mean, the guy shouted Britain first, so yeah, I can see a connection. But it just shows how far the Leave campaign will go to... They will go to any lengths to get what they want. Any lengths. So, I'm deciding to... Well, I decided ages ago that I'd vote to remain. That's not just because I'm a liberal. It's because it's what I generally believe is best. Because inside the EU, we are stronger, we are safer. And I will say that because over the last few years, even though it's been a tough road, our economy is actually one of the fastest growing in the EU. I don't believe we could have done that on our own. I believe the EU, as we've been working with them, has helped to grow our economy. Helped to grow jobs, you know, and the infrastructure and exports and stuff like that. I believe that the EU has contributed to that. As for the safer bit, think about this. We have the European arrest warrant. Now, I don't know if we're going to lose that if we leave. I believe we will, because, you know, if any criminal flees anywhere in the EU, they can be brought back to the country to face justice within weeks. Because before it took months or even decades. I don't want to go back to that at all. The only playing card the EU, the Leave campaign has is immigration. Immigration this, immigration that. Just shut up. Just shut up. Immigration is a wonderful thing. It should be celebrated rather than hated. Because immigration has helped build our country to what it is today. It really has. No matter how you look at it. It's helped to build our great nation. One of the things I believe we should stay in the EU is trade. Because while we're in the EU, we are able to trade with 28 different countries on the same terms. Yes, however, I believe that's much better than the alternative, where a future government will have to renegotiate with those 28 different countries on our terms. Studies show, not just expert, but independent studies have shown that a future government will be spending the majority of their time renegotiating trade deals with 28 other countries, and in my view, they're pretty much just going to be ignoring everything else. Jobs, housing, NHS, schools, the military, the likes, the works. They're going to be ignoring all of that, just focusing on trade. Why? Because they have to. Because they were stupid enough to convince the nation to leave. And so we're going to have to be dealing with that and more. Here's another thing that the Brexit campaign don't want you to know, but I have a feeling that we all do. When we leave, if we leave, I hope we don't, but if we do, we are going to have to be still dealing with the EU laws. And I know you leavers are going to be saying, no, we don't have to, because we're outside the EU. You know, we're not in the EU anymore. Doesn't matter. We're still part of Europe, which means we will still have to be dealing with their laws. We can complain, we can moan all we want. It won't matter. Because we left, we no longer have a say, we're still going to have to be dealing with it. It won't matter. While we're in the EU, we have a voice, we have a say, we can say no. It's not it's not for Britain's interest, I'm going to fight to stop or change it. And I believe that's what David Cameron has done. We are a country that fights, not flee. So that's the real thing here. That's the real question. Do we fight or do we flee? Do we just run away when we have the opportunity to change it? We can change it. And I know a lot of people say, you know, oh, we won't be able to. That's wrong. We can. We can do something about the EU. It's not perfect. We all know that. But if we flee, then what's the point? I mean, when the Nazis invaded, did we just surrender? No. We fought back. We fought and we drove them off. We became a beacon of hope to the rest of the world. We became inspiration. That's what this country should remain. When it comes to immigration, picture this, right? Picture you're the immigrant, fleeing from war, poverty, or just a bad life in general. And then you get to our borders and they say, no, we're not letting you in, despite the fact you're a skilled worker, despite the fact you have some good qualifications, we're not letting you in because our country is full. Really? Now here's my personal policy. If you go and live in a country, you should learn their native language. It'll make life much easier for you, it'll make life much easier for the people around you. Because they'll be understand what you're saying, and vice versa. Now I know that English is apparently the hardest language to learn, but it is possible. It can be done. Because at my job, I see a lot of people who don't speak English very well, but well enough so that I and other people can understand them pretty well. So it can be done. I'm not saying you can't keep your own language. Of course you can. You're entitled to do so. But all I'm saying is that if you learn, then it'll be made much easier. Say, for example, I wanted to go live in Spain. I would learn Spanish. I would have to learn Spanish. And I'm fine with that. Of course you have a right to maintain your own language, of course, but that's all I'm suggesting is that you try and learn our language. Now, I think that's reasonable, you know? I don't really consider it racist or anything like that. Although, the way some people have said it, oh, they can't speak English. Like, yeah, but it's the way you're saying it. It's the way you're saying it that makes people think you're being a racist. If we think about this, the Brexit campaign is nothing but a bunch of racists. Or at least those in UKIP are, and they're involved. Now, there's been a lot of scaremongering with both campaigns. Both sides have been scaremongering. And as we all know, fear is a lot stronger than hope. But we can't give in to it. We just can't. Because the thing is, no matter what the Brexit campaign's saying, and this is all to the people who want to stay in, this is all to you, I'm saying this to you, you cannot give in to fear. Because that's all they do. In fact, the only playing card they seem to have, their strongest playing card, or in my case, their only playing card is immigration. Yeah? And that's another thing. Even if we get out of the EU, we'll still be dealing with immigration. It might be better or it might be 10 times worse. Who knows? I mean, yeah, we can take... They say, you know, we can take back control. What does that even mean? It's not that the EU owns us or anything. Despite the fact what the Leave campaign believes, we're not owned by the EU. We can We can fight for our interests while we stay. If we leave, we're pretty much giving up. That's not what we should do. We shouldn't give up. Britain is an amazing country, and I believe that when we work together with the other 28 countries, we can do so much. We can do amazing things. We can do great things. Now, as for the membership costs, the Brexit says we can put the money to better use. Fair enough, but think about this. Okay? Car manufacturing. When we're in the EU, actually, let me put a better example. Okay, America is not in Europe, and if it wants to sell cars to the EU, it has to pay a 10% tariff. I'm not sure if that's the correct word. Tariff. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But while we are in the EU, since we're part of it, we don't have to pay a single penny. Now, I know that there's been claims saying, we buy more from them than they from us, and I have a feeling, I have a theory why, because I'm going by stereotype here, because the majority of British stuff that we make breaks after one day. I don't know if that's true, but it's a stereotype I actually agree with, and it's a stereotype I can actually laugh at, because it's just funny, and in my case I think it's true. So yeah, the EU, all the other countries in the EU make better products, in my opinion. That's what I generally think. And, it's just, these immigrants are coming over here because they want a better life for themselves and their families. How is that wrong? How? Yeah, they come over here illegally, deport them. The problem is with that, we have no idea where they are. No idea. And yeah, a lot of people say that they just come over here to claim benefits. Maybe that is the case, and we can stop that. That's what the renegotiations were for. But we can't just give up just because we don't like it. If you don't like something and you want to change it, you can't just leave. You have to fight for it. You have to fight for it, and that's what we've been doing for years. When the Nazis invaded, did we just surrender to them? No. We stood our ground, we fought, and we said, no. Not here, not ever. We became a symbol of hope. We became inspiration. And that's what we should be to the rest of the EU. Hope and inspiration. That it can be changed if you fight for it. And that's what I'm going to do. That's why I'm voting Remain, because I believe we are stronger and safer in the EU. When it comes to the economy, a lot of experts and independent studies have shown that it could be devastating for our economy. It could be devastating for the NHS. It can be devastating for our country as a whole. It's not just that. We need to think about our children and our grandchildren and the future generations, because they're going to be dealing with this. Now, I'm young enough, so I'm going to be dealing with it as well, but they're the ones going to be dealing with it long afterwards. It's a one-way ticket. There is no going back. There's no reset button. It's not that you can just push a button and suddenly the vote's going to be redone. That's not going to happen. So, all of you Brexit people, and this is generally what I've heard every time that I've been debating with people who think we should get out of the EU, their first argument is immigration. It's the first argument they have. And that's pretty much all they go on about. When immigration isn't the only issue, there's loads more, but yet when it comes to the other issues, the Brexit campaign have nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're pretty much using hate as their weapon in this referendum. We need to disarm it. Disarm and dismantle. So please, when you go to vote, please think about your children, your grandchildren, because that's what I'm doing. I don't have any, but I'm thinking about my cousins. Okay, they're still kids, and I'm just thinking, what kind of opportunities are they going to have? What kind of life are they going to have? Are they going to be able to find a good job? Are they going to be able to get their first flat, house, car, whatever? Are they going to be able to do any of that? I don't know. Possibly. But who's to say? Now I know that, not everyone has the same views that I do. I know that possibly I'm going to get some comments saying, you're an idiot, we should leave the EU, blah blah blah, don't believe the lies, blah blah blah. Just, look, you're allowed to voice your opinion. I'm not going... You know what? I'm not going to get into that. I'm simply voicing my opinion why I think we should stay in. That's what I think. Because when we're in the EU, travel is actually made, across the EU, it's actually made a lot easier. What happens if we get out? How will it change? It will change for the worse. That's the thing. And what about the millions of Brits living overseas? What happens to them? Who's to say? Who's to say? All I've been hearing on the Brexit campaign is immigration this, immigration that. Well, apart from when Boris Johnson speaks and he actually talks about other things, with a bit of immigration mixed in there, but for the most part he talks about other things. Forget the fact that David Cameron's a Tory, Tim Farron's a Liberal, forget all of that. The Green Party, Labour, Liberal Democrats, the Conservatives, we're all joined together on this. We all agree that the EU, we all agree it's not perfect, but it needs to be changed, and they all believe that we are better off in the EU. And that's what I think too. I genuinely believe we are better off in the EU. Not just with the economy, but with trade. Because trade is made much easier. Our economy is getting stronger. I don't see anything wrong with that. As for immigration, we can set our own rules. You do know that, right? I mean, yeah, sometimes the EU interferes when it shouldn't. I believe, and the money we pay, I believe that's a small price. Considering, this is an independent study, considering that the majority of EU countries have to pay more than we do. Despite the fact that we're actually one of the best economies in Europe. Now, I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying what I've heard. It was an independent study. Now, many people believe we should remain in the EU, including David Beckham, and including the FA or football bosses, or I'm not really a big fan of football, so I don't really know. But I did read about it just yesterday, actually. Just yesterday. Businesses, big and small, not all of them, believe we should remain in the EU. Because they say it's better for their business, it helps them to grow and expand, and to hire more people. Jobs are at risk, possibly even mine. The economy is at risk. The future of our country is at risk. This is bigger than any general election we've ever had. This is bigger than 10 put together, because it won't just affect the next 5 years and we can just suddenly change our minds. It'll affect the rest of our lives. It'll affect the future of this country permanently. There is no going back. So when I go to vote on the 23rd, I'll be thinking about my cousins and their future. Because I genuinely want them to have the best opportunities possible. And I believe they can get that with the EU. Because they can study abroad if they wanted to. But it'll be made much harder for them if we leave. So if you guys feel as I do, if you feel we are better off in the EU, then you have to fight for it. You can't just pray or expect that the Remain campaign will be victorious. You can't expect that. You have to fight for it. You have to vote for it. Voting is very important to me. We have been given this right. I believe we should use it. However, if you are not planning to vote, that's fine. That's up to you. Because there are some people out there who believe, actually there's a lot of people, who believe that no matter how you vote, it'll stay the same. It's the same thing with the general election. They don't vote in those either because they believe it'll just stay the same. But does that stop me or others like me? No. If you want the future of this country to be as you see it, then you have to vote for it. You can't just sit on the sidelines and hope. You have to vote for it. Whichever way you're going, if you plan to vote, do it. If the country decides to leave, which I hope it doesn't, but if it does decide to leave, and things go bad, which I firmly believe they will go bad, and then they go from bad to worse, you have no one to blame but yourself. Don't you dare blame the government. It was you. You decided to vote to leave, the country left the EU, and now all of this negative stuff is happening, all the bad stuff is happening. You've got no one to blame but yourself. We need to stop thinking about ourselves and start thinking about our future. Start thinking about the future in general. Thinking about our cousins' futures, our children's futures, our grandchildren's futures, and the future generation. We have to consider all of this, and we have to stop thinking about ourselves. Because, yeah, if we leave the EU, I mean, I'm only 23, so I'll still be dealing with some of the stuff, quite a lot of it actually. But I'm not thinking just about myself. I'm thinking, actually, come to think of it, I'm not thinking about myself at all. I'm not thinking about my future. I'm thinking about my cousins' futures. And if I have any kids, I'll be thinking about their future. And I'll be worried about it because, again, what kind of opportunities are they going to have? What kind of education are they going to get? Are they going to be able to get a job? Are they going to be able to do this or that? That's what every parent worries about. But I believe that we are better off in the EU. We have more opportunities. We have more jobs. That's it. So yeah, I'm going to be voting to remain in the EU on the 23rd. With only 2 days to go, you have to decide, but think very, very carefully. Because once you've made your choice, once you've voted, you cannot change it. There's no second chances. And it's the same thing if we leave. There'll be no second chances. There'll be no going back. The EU isn't perfect, but we should not just give up. We should fight to change it. Britain has always been a fighter, and we should always remain so. If other countries give up because it's too hard, we should set an example and say, we're staying in this organisation, and we are going to fight to change it, so it's not just better for our country, but the rest of Europe as a whole. We should be a leader in Europe. We shouldn't lead, we should be a leader. Ignore the fact that there's a lot of politicians that you guys may hate in the Remain campaign, but you should not focus on that. Just put that aside and focus on everything I've said. Focus on your children's futures, grandchildren, cousins, whatever. Focus on all of that and consider what kind of future they're going to have and what kind of future the country's going to have. I mean, the Scottish National Party has said that this could be leading to a second Scottish referendum, which would be illegal, I might add, but will they care? No. So it could lead to not only us getting out of the EU, but it could lead to the breakup of the UK as a whole, and that would destroy our country forever. There'll be no fixing it. So please listen to both sides, and I mean everything, not just with immigration. But when it comes to the economy, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to the NHS is wonderful. It's magnificent, and we shouldn't put it at risk more than we already have. By leaving the EU, that could actually devastate the NHS beyond repair. It could devastate our economy beyond repair. It's a leap in the dark. It actually is. Because we don't know what it's going to look like. If we leave the EU, we don't know what it's going to look like. As I said, we should be a leader, and we should fight for our future. We should fight. This country is great. It has never fled in the face of oppression. It has never fled in the face of difficult times. We've stood there at the heart of the storm, and we have fought. We should never flee. We should be an inspiration to the rest of Europe. We must be the symbol of hope that it needs. Don't, and this is to anyone who's undecided or voting to remain, don't let Nigel Farage and his band of idiots ruin this great nation. And as for you Brexit campaigners, think it through. I am so sick and tired. Every time I talk to someone about the EU, for the most part, they get really miffed about immigration. Not all of them. I have spoken to several people who think, we should leave the EU because they believe it's best for business, they believe it's best for the economy. Those people I applaud. Well done. Because you're not focusing on immigration, you're focusing on everything else. And that's fantastic. But for the majority of people I've spoken to about the EU, immigration is always a fast argument. It's pathetic. It's the only playing card you people actually have. When it comes to the Remain campaign, we have a lot of playing cards to play. Immigration, let's see, economy, trade, financial security, security of the nation, the military, all of that. But there have been a lot of scaremongering with both campaigns. I admit this. I've seen it. But please, this referendum is far, far more important than any general election. It's far more important than any local, by, or European election. It's far more important than all of those put together. This vote is too important to miss out. Excuse me. You may think that your life is going to stay the same outside the EU. It won't. It will seem that way at first, but things will dramatically change. So please, if you're thinking about voting Remain, do it. Whichever way you vote, as long as you use it, then you can hold your head up high when the results are in, and you can say, I voted, I took part in changing my country's future for the better. Whichever way you look at it, you can say that, because it's what you generally think. For those who want to leave, they believe that we'll be better outside the EU, and vice versa for the Remain. But when you go to vote on the 23rd, please don't take it lightly. You need to think. You need to put yourself aside and think about the future generations. That's what you need to think about. Because I don't want my cousins to have a hard life. I don't want them to have a harder life than my parents did. Or anything. I don't want, if I have kids, I don't want them to have a harder life than the previous generation. Don't want that. I believe that's what's going to happen if we get out of the EU. Just one more thing. I mentioned earlier that, well, I hope I did, I can't remember because I've been busy talking. I think I mentioned earlier that we will still be dealing with the EU's laws. And that's true. It's a fact. We'll still be dealing with them, but we can moan. It won't matter because We had a chance to change it. We had a chance to stand up and say no, but we chose to flee instead, like a bunch of cowards. And the British people are a proud people. This country is amazing, and we have never fled. As I said, in the face of oppression or difficulty, we've never fled. We shouldn't start now. As for immigration, we're still going to be dealing with that even when we get out of the EU. We are still going to be dealing with it. So yeah, I'm voting to remain in. I hope you guys are as well. But if you're not, please let me know in the comments whether you're in or out. If you want to say something else, feel free to do so. It's your opinion. But if you can avoid it, please don't swear in the comments. Okay, let's keep this civilized. Let's not involve swearing or anything, or name calling or anything like that. Let's keep it civilized. Let's just try and, you know, debate this through like rational human beings instead of saying F you or stuff like that. It's not necessary. It's not needed. It's not even wanted. So yeah, I'm voting to remain in. Anyone who's thinking of doing so, please do. If you're planning to vote at all, please do. If you're undecided, you still have time. You still have time to make up your mind. However, if you decide, I'm not going to vote, that's totally fine, because you've decided not to vote at all. So thank you everyone for watching. And yes, one last thing. As a reminder, when you go to vote, think about your future. Think about not just your future, think about your children's future. Your grandchildren, your cousins, your nephews and nieces. Think about them. Because they're the ones who are going to have to bear the brunt. They're the ones who are going to have to be dealing with all of this and more. Thank you for watching.